In 1965, a mechanic at a Route 66 station in Kingman, Arizona, kept the sun-bleached cars of passing travelers looking almost new with a 30-cent tube of toothpaste. The high desert sun faded the paint, dulled the chrome, and hazed the lenses of every car that crossed it, and tourists rolled in certain their cars were ruined. He would take a rag, a dab of plain white paste, and 10 minutes, and hand back a car that shone. He understood one thing nobody around him did, that haze and oxidation and tarnish are only a thin, dead layer on top of a good surface, and a good engine is often trapped inside a shell the sun has ruined. That is number 25. He never replaced what he could bring back. But the one surface he never polished in his whole life, because his own headlights were glass, is the very thing his trick saves drivers the most money on today. That is number 1. Here is what he knew that we forgot. Toothpaste is not a cleaner. It is the finest abrasive most people already own, a polish in a tube, mild particles of silica and chalk that act like an ultra-fine sandpaper. The sun and the years lay a thin oxidized film on chrome, on plastic, on a painted finish. And that film is what scatters light and looks dead. He did not buy a separate product for every surface. One gentle polish lifted that dead layer off almost anything, and the good surface underneath came back. Today, there is a bottle on the shelf for every one of these jobs, $8 and $10 each, and a whole industry that would rather sell you the new part. Number 13 brings a sun-faded tail light lens back to bright red, so you are seen when you brake. Number 5 polishes a pitted dead chrome bumper back to a shine and saves you the re-chroming bill. And number 1, the surface he never had to touch in 1965, restores the fogged headlights on a modern car, a job the dealer wants hundreds or thousands for, that a tube of paste begins for pennies. These 25 tricks were never about a cheap tube of toothpaste. They were about a man who understood one plain fact of surfaces well enough that one tube did the work of 40 bottles. The tube was simple, knowing that a faded finish is not dead, only covered, and that a car too ugly to keep is often a good engine under a thin dead layer, was not. This is what he knew. Hit that subscribe button, and let us count down the 25 forgotten garage tricks 1965 mechanics used with toothpaste that still save car owners thousands. Number 25. Polishing the sun-dulled chrome back to shine, the dead gray film that lifted off in 10 minutes. You put a dab of plain white paste on a damp rag and worked it over the chrome trim and bumperettes, and the dull gray oxidation came away on the cloth, leaving the shine underneath. A traveler in 1965 rolled into Kingman sure his trim was ruined, and rolled out an hour later with it bright, for a rag and a fingertip of paste. Chrome oxidizes to a thin, dull haze, and a mild abrasive lifts it without cutting the plating. The Kingman mechanic polished the chrome on any car that came in dusty off the highway. The chrome was not ruined, it was only wearing a thin, dead film. Number 24. Clearing the hard water film off the glass. The cloudy windshield you could not wipe clean, you rubbed a little paste over the glass where hard water and desert dust had left a stubborn film, and it cut the deposit plain washing left behind, leaving the windshield clear. A driver in 1965 crossing the dry country fought that film for weeks because ordinary cleaner slid right over it. Hard water spots are a mineral deposit bonded to the glass, and a mild abrasive scrubs them off where a liquid cleaner cannot. The Kingman mechanic cleared a windshield whenever the glare got dangerous. The glass was not scratched, It only wore a film that water alone would not move. Number 23. Buffing the hazy speedometer lens, clear. The clouded gauge you could no longer read. You worked a small dab over the clear plastic lens covering the speedometer, and the fine haze buffed away, so the needle and numbers came back sharp. A driver in 1965 with a clouded cluster guessed at his speed for a year because a hazed lens made the dash hard to read at night. Clear plastic hazes with fine scratches that scatter light, and an ultra-fine polish levels them to clarity, the same principle as a headlight. The Kingman mechanic cleared a foggy gauge lens whenever he had the cluster open. The gauge was not broken. Its window was only clouded. Number 22. Bringing the dull emblems and badges back. The oxidized nameplate that looked cheap. You rubbed paste into the emblems, the hood ornament, and the nameplates, and the oxidized dullness came off to leave them bright. A proud owner in 1965 shined his emblems before a long trip because a dull, pitted badge made a clean car look tired. Cast and plated emblems oxidized to a haze like chrome, and the same gentle polish lifts it. The Kingman mechanic hit the emblems last, the way a barber finishes a shave. The badge was not worthless. It was only dull, and dullness wipes off. Number 21. Cleaning the grimy dashboard knobs and switches. The years of hand grime that darkened the plastic. You worked a little paste over the knobs, the switch plastic, and the column collar, and the dark film of years of fingers came off, leaving the plastic its own color again. A family man in 1965 cleaned his dash before he sold a car because clean controls made a buyer trust the machine. Skin oil bonds into a film on plastic, and a detergent abrasive lifts it where a dry cloth just smears it. The Kingman mechanic wiped the controls clean whenever a car was in his bay. The plastic was not stained through. It only wore what 1,000 hands left behind. Number 20. Lifting the scuff marks off the panels, the black shoe streaks along the door. You rubbed paste over the scuffs and shoe marks on the door and kick panels, and the black streaks lifted off the plastic and paint. A father of a full car in 1965 scrubbed the kick panels every season because a family's shoes streaked every low panel. A scuff is a smear of softer material on a harder surface, and a mild abrasive takes it off without harming the finish beneath. The Kingman mechanic cleared the scuffs from a trade-in before he showed it. The panel was not marked for good. The mark only rode on the surface.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us, who still believe a man should be able to keep his own car running. It's the Forgotten Mechanic's Handbook, the old-fashioned car repair secrets our grandfathers used to fix any engine and keep it running for decades. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay another mechanic ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 19. Clearing the foggy radio dial window. The clouded plastic you could not see the station through. You buffed a dab across the little plastic window over the radio dial, and the fog cleared, so the numbers showed again. A driver in 1965 who ran the highway by radio cleared it because a station you cannot find is a long night across empty country. That dial cover is the same hazing plastic as any lens, and the same polish clears it. The Kingman mechanic cleared the radio window when he cleared the gauges. The dial was not dead. Its little window was only fogged. Number 18. Laying an anti-fog film on the inside glass. The trick that kept the mirror and the windshield from misting. You rubbed the thinnest smear of paste over the inside of the mirror and buffed it down to almost nothing. And the film that stayed behind held off the fog of a cold morning. A traveler in 1965, sleeping in his car, did this to the mirror because a misted mirror on a cold dawn meant pulling over to wipe it. Here is the honest note. The film works, but it is a temporary trick, not a coating, and you buff nearly all of it off so it does not smear. The Kingman mechanic showed the trick to drivers headed into the cold country. The fog was not the glass failing. It was moisture with nothing to stop it. Number 17, polishing the tarnish off the gauge bezels, the dulled chrome rings around the dials. You worked paste around the thin chrome bezels ringing the gauges, and the tarnish came off to leave them bright, so the dash caught the light again. A careful owner in 1965 detailed his bezels before he sold, because bright trim made an old dash look almost new. Thin, decorative chrome tarnishes, fastest of all, and a gentle polish brings it back without wearing through. The Kingman mechanic brightened the bezels whenever he cleared the lenses behind them. The bezel was not pitted through. It was only tarnished on the surface. Here is something nobody is tracking. The men who kept a plain tube on the bench and knew 40 uses for it are nearly gone, and a whole way of seeing a car went with them. A faded finish, a hazed lens, a dull piece of chrome, none of it is the part failing. It is a thin, dead layer on top of a part that is perfectly good. They did not throw away a bumper because it went gray, or a whole car because the sun had chalked its paint over a sound engine. They lifted the dead layer off and kept what was under it, because that is what you did when money was dear and parts were far away. The men who replaced them were trained to see a faded part as a dead part and sell the new one. That judgment, the eye to tell a dead surface from a dead part, lived in the hands of men who are leaving us. We are scrapping good cars for how they look. Number 16, taking the light rust off the hand tools, the surface bloom that wiped off a wrench. You rubbed paste over the light surface rust on a wrench or a chrome socket, and the orange bloom came off to leave the steel clean. A tradesman in 1965 cleaned his tools this way because good tools were bought once and a damp winter could freckle a whole box. Light surface rust is a thin oxide on good steel, and a mild abrasive lifts it before it pits into the metal. The Kingman mechanic ran a tube over his own tools when the rust first showed. The tool was not ruined. The rust was only a bloom on the surface. Number 15, buffing the swirl marks out of the finish, the fine scratches that dulled the paint. You worked a dab of paste lightly over the fine swirl marks and hairline scratches in the paint, and they buffed down until the finish looked deep again, because a very fine abrasive is exactly what a mild rubbing compound is. A proud owner in 1965 buffed his hood before a show, because a finish full of fine swirls looked tired even when the paint was sound. Here is the honest limit. This works on light surface swirls only, and you use it sparingly, because toothpaste is an abrasive, and leaning on it will cut the finish. For a deep scratch, you can catch a nail in. No polish will save it. The Kingman mechanic used it light, and only where the scratch had not gone through. The paint was not gone. Only the very top of it was scratched. Number 14. Clearing the cloudy clock lens and light covers, the fogged plastic over the small dials. You buffed a little paste across the clock lens and the small covers over the dash lights, and the fog cleared so they read again. A driver in 1965 who ran on time cleared his clock lens, because a clock you cannot read is a clock you stop trusting. Every one of these covers is the same hazing plastic, and the same polish clears them. The Kingman mechanic cleared the clock when he cleared the gauges beside it. The clock was not stopped. Its window was only clouded. Number 13. Bringing the faded tail light lens back to red. The sun-bleached lens nobody could see behind you. You worked paste over the red tail light and turn signal lenses the sun had faded to chalky pink, and the deep red came back, so your brake lights read bright to the car behind you. A family on the open highway in 1965 needed those lenses bright because a brake light nobody sees is the difference between a close call and a crash. Red lens plastic chalks in UV like a headlight, and lifting that dead layer restores the color and the light it passes. The Kingman mechanic brought the tail lights back on any car headed into the dark country. The lens was not dead. Its color was only buried under a chalky film. Number 12. Scrubbing the grease and the smell off your hands. The mechanic's trick at the end of the day. You worked a little paste into your hands with the grease, and the abrasive and detergent lifted the grime out of the creases while the mint took the smell of gasoline off your skin. A working man in 1965 kept a tube by the wash sink as well as the bench, because a man who worked with his hands all day still wanted them clean at night, and solvent cracked the skin. Toothpaste is a mild detergent with a fine abrasive, exactly what lifts ground-in grease. The Kingman mechanic swore the tube cleaned his hands better than the harsh soap. The grime was not part of his hands. It only needed the right thing to lift it. Number 11. Lifting the sticker ghost and adhesive residue. The gummy haze a decal left behind. You laid paste over the dried adhesive, and the ghost a sticker left on glass or chrome, worked it in, and the residue balled up and wiped away instead of smearing. A used car man in 1965 stripped the last owner's stickers this way because a razor on glass left marks a buyer would find. The mild abrasive gives the residue something to break against, lifting it where a dry cloth only smears it. The Kingman mechanic cleaned the ghost off a windshield before he put a car out front. The glass was not marked. The glue only sat on top of it. Number 10. Scrubbing the crust off the battery terminals, the white-green bloom that choked the connection. You worked paste over the corroded battery posts and clamps and scrubbed, and the crusty bloom broke up and rinsed away, leaving the lead clean enough to carry current, so the car started strong. A driver in 1965, stranded by a slow crank, learned to keep his posts clean because a good battery choked at the terminal leaves you with a sound engine and a dead start. Here is the honest note. Toothpaste scrubs the crust off mechanically, but it does not neutralize the acid the way baking soda does, and baking soda is the better tool. Some pastes even contain baking soda, which is why the trick works at all. The Kingman mechanic kept the terminals clean on every car before it left. The battery was not dead. It was only choked at the connection. Here is the part of his story we skipped. The Kingman mechanic did not come up with any of this. He learned it sweeping the bay for an old man who had run that station since the road was dirt, a man who had watched the desert sun kill the finish on 1,000 cars and decided he would not let it beat him. He kept a tube on the bench and treated a faded car like a puzzle, not a loss. For 2 years, he would hand the boy a rag and a dab of paste, point at a piece of dead gray chrome and say, "That is not gone. It is only covered. Bring it back." The boy thought it fussiness until the day two identical sun-baked cars came through, and the old man showed him one he had polished a year before, still bright, beside one left to go. Then, one afternoon, the boy caught a chalked tail-light lens the old man had walked past and brought it back to red on his own, and the old man just nodded and handed him the next car alone. He ran that station for 30 years on the edge of the hardest sun in the country, and his customers' cars did not look scrapped. And the one lesson he drilled in before all the others, that a dead surface is not a dead part, points straight at number 1. Number 9. Brightening the corroded electrical contacts, the dull connection that starved the circuit. You worked the smallest bit of paste over dull, corroded contacts and ground points, brightened them, and wiped every trace back off, so the metal met clean and the circuit carried full. A driver in 1965, chasing a flickering circuit, cleaned his grounds this way because corrosion at a contact imitated a dozen bigger faults in the engine's wiring. Here is the honest note. A mild abrasive brightens a contact, but you must wipe every trace off after and keep it away from delicate points, because paste left in a connection does more harm than good. The Kingman mechanic brightened a ground only when he could clean it out fully after. The circuit was not broken. The contact was only dull. Number 8. Polishing the wiper haze off the windshield. The fine marks that smeared every sweep. You buffed paste over the fine haze and light marks the wipers had ground into the glass, and the windshield cleared so the blades swept clean instead of smearing an arc of glare. A night driver in 1965 cleared that band before a long haul because a smeared wiper arc at night is a real danger. Here is the honest limit. This lifts fine haze and light marks only. A deep gouge in the glass, no paste will remove, because that needs a harder polish than a tube holds. The Kingman mechanic cleared the wiper band on any car headed into a night of driving. The glass was not scratched deep. It was only hazed on the surface. Number 7. Restoring the sun-chalked plastic trim, the gray, dead trim on a good car. You worked paste into the chalked, faded plastic trim and cowl, and the dead gray came off to leave the color and a little life. So a sound car stopped looking abandoned. A man selling a good car in 1965 restored his trim first, because chalked plastic over a sound engine cost him hundreds at trade-in. Here is the honest note. The polish brings the color back, but bare plastic will chalk again in the sun, so you seal or wax it after. The Kingman mechanic always sealed the trim after he brought it back, or the desert took it again. The trim was not dead. It was only chalked, and chalk comes off. Number 6. Clearing the foggy outside mirror, the hazed glass you could not see behind you through. You buffed paste over the fogged outside mirror glass, and the haze cleared, so the road behind you came back sharp. A driver in 1965 pulling a trailer cleared his mirrors first, because a hazed mirror hid the thing he most needed to see. Mirror glass hazes with a fine film like any glass, and the same polish clears it. The Kingman mechanic cleared the mirrors whenever he cleaned the glass. The mirror was not failing. It was only wearing a film. Number 5. Polishing the pitted chrome bumper back, the dead gray bumper that saved the rechroming bill. You spent real time with paste and a rag on a bumper the sun had turned dull gray, and the shine came back up out of it, so a bumper that looked finished was bright again, and you skipped a rechroming bill that cost more than most men made in a week. A proud owner in 1965 brought his bumper back rather than pay to replate it because rechroming was a luxury and a rag and a tube were pocket change. Chrome that is only oxidized, not pitted through, comes back with a mild polish, which is why a good detailer still saves a bumper before condemning it. The Kingman mechanic brought a bumper back on any car whose owner was about to give up because a good engine deserves a body that does not look scrapped. The bumper was not gone. It only wore a thick gray film. Number 4. Polishing the night glare film off the inside glass, the haze that turned oncoming lights into stars. You buffed paste over the inside of the windshield where a hazy film had built up from smoke and vapor, and the glass came clear, so oncoming headlights stopped bursting into blinding stars at night. A driver in 1965 who could not understand why night driving had gotten so hard cleared his inside glass because the film that scatters a light builds so slowly you never notice it arrive. A greasy film scatters every point of light into a starburst, and lifting it with a mild abrasive brings the sharp points back. The Kingman mechanic cleared the inside glass whenever an owner said the nights had gotten hard to see. The night was not the problem. The film on the glass was. Number 3. Reading the surface before you touched it. The eye that told a dead layer from a dead part. You learned to look at a faded piece and know, before you lifted a finger, whether it was a dead surface you could bring back or a part truly gone. Oxidation, haze, chalk, and tarnish came back. A crack, a deep gouge, plating pitted clean through, did not. The Kingman mechanic could run a thumb over a dull piece and tell in a second which it was, because the old man had trained his hands and his eye on 1,000 sun-killed cars. He taught his customers the same short judgment, so they never wasted a Sunday polishing what could not come back, nor scrapped what could. The polish is easy. Knowing where it will work is the whole trade. He never wasted an hour on a dead part and never scrapped a good one. Number 2. Knowing a faded finish is only covered, not gone. The one idea underneath every trick on this list. You understood, the way he did, that haze and oxidation and tarnish are a thin, dead layer on a good surface, and that the finest abrasive most people owned, a tube of toothpaste, lifted that layer away and let the good surface show. Restore what is only covered. Replace only what is truly gone. The Kingman mechanic built this into every customer he could because the man who believed his faded car was ruined bought a new part, and the man who knew it was only covered kept his money. Every trick on this list, the chrome, the lenses, the trim, the bumper, was only this one idea made specific. The finish was rarely dead. It was almost always only covered. Number 1. Restoring the fogged, yellowed headlights. The one surface he never touched in 1965 that saves the most today. On a modern car, the headlights are plastic, and the sun hazes them yellow and dim exactly the way it chalked the chrome and lenses he polished all his life. You work the paste over the fogged lens, the dead oxidized layer lifts, the clarity comes back, and a car that was half blind at night can see the road again for the cost of a tube. Then you seal it, or the sun hazes it back in a month. The Kingman mechanic never polished a headlight in his life, because in 1965 they were glass and the sun could not touch them. But the lesson he spent 30 years teaching, that a hazed surface is only a dead layer over a good one, is the exact thing that saves a driver the most money today. A new headlight assembly runs hundreds of dollars and thousands on a luxury car, And a tube of paste begins the same job for pennies. Badly clouded headlights put out as little as a fifth of the light of new ones, which makes this the rare trick that saves real money and real safety in the same 10 minutes. Number 1 is not clever. It is a tube of paste, a rag, and the oldest lesson in that Kingman Bay, carried forward to a surface the old man never lived to see. None of these tricks needed a specialty product or a shelf of bottles. They needed a 30-cent tube and a man who understood that a faded finish is not a dead part, only a thin dead layer over a good one, and that a good engine often waits under a shell the sun has ruined. He polished the chrome back, cleared the lenses, brought the tail lights to red, and saved a bumper from the re-chroming bill. A tube that cost pocket change, used with that much judgment, saved his customers hundreds and thousands over the years on parts they never had to buy. Here is what makes it sting. On a modern car, a fogged headlight assembly runs hundreds of dollars and thousands on some, and badly clouded headlights throw as little as a fifth of the light of new ones. A danger as much as a cost. A tube of paste starts that job for pennies. We did not lose the chemistry. The tube still sits on the shelf, still the finest cheap abrasive there is. What we lost was the man who knew a dead surface from a dead part, and the eye to tell which was which. We lost the old man on the edge of the desert who put a rag and a tube in a boy's hands, pointed at a piece of dead gray chrome, and said, "That is not gone, it is only covered. Bring it back." The boy learned to bring it back, and kept a highway's worth of sun-killed cars from looking scrapped for 30 years. And on his last day, he set the tube in a new boy's hands, pointed at a chalked and faded lens, and said the same 6 words.